Okay, guys, I'm going to help you go through a different version of the exam, really as a review. So you'll notice on here that it says Algebra 2C Exam 2020. And this really isn't the exam, it's just a version of the exam. So I'm going to use this as a review. We'll do a different review together in class. And I've posted yet another one in a Google form that you can practice kind of over and over again till you know you get at least 75% or higher and know that you're good to go. But I would just want to make sure that you get a good idea of how to do these. So in the review itself, there are 19 problems. I will tell you you're going to use Desmos. Whether you're taking the class or taking the exam in class with us, like on an A or B cohort day, or you are cohort C and taking it home, you're going to have to use Desmos. If you are taking it as a cohort C kid, Desmos is the only tab you'll be able to have open. It will block everything else. So please make sure that you're practicing using Desmos and all of that. So let's take a look at the first one. So they want us to graph each function. And how is the graph a translation of f of x equals x squared? So first of all, on this part right here, when they're talking about that, we talked about before that that's a parent function. So they want to know how it is different for this function compared to that one. So based on what we've been talking about, we talked about this part in the end. If it's plus a number, that means it's going to go up. And then because it's plus 1, it's going to go up 1. So remember, this parent function, would sit just like this at that point of 0, 0. So they're telling you that it's going to go up 1. So we're looking for the graph that looks like it goes up 1. So translated up 1 unit, and this looked like it's gone 1 unit up from where it was sitting there. So that means your answer is going to be B. Now, a couple things. I'm expecting to see that you're marking up the equations. That's going to be your work. So you've got to make sure that you're doing that. Okay, number 2. I have y equals parenthesis x minus 1 squared. So we said that when this is inside of here, if it's minus, then that means it's going to go to the right. And if it's minus 1, that means it's going to go 1 unit. So remember, we're basing it on the parent function. So we said that parent function looks like this and sits right here. There's that parent function. So first of all, we're going to look for the one that says it goes to the right. So the only one that we can see on here that says it goes to the right is this one. And you can see that if it started out at 0, 0 like this one did, this one moves over 1 unit. So it's going to be this. Okay, now we're going to look at one that has more than one movement. So this one is y equals x plus 1 squared plus 2. So we have a couple different movements there. So first of all, this part right here on the end tells me I go up 2. This one, if it's plus 1, then that means it goes to the left 1. Now, I don't have a number out in front here, so I assume it's 1 and it's a positive 1. So that means that it opens up. Okay, so remember, our parent function looks like this sitting here. Now, it tells us from the equation that we have that it's going to have to go up 2, and it's going to have to go to the left 1. So I'm looking for something that sits in that area. So this one, it goes up 2 and to the left 1. And that's where the vertex is. So this one is going to be D. Now, I am expecting that you're going to go through and mark these up. You could always put this in Desmos and try it, but it still has to be marked up here in the way that I am. So if you want to use that as a way to kind of double check yourself, then feel free to do that. Just make sure you're marking up the equation or you won't be able to get that credit for it. Okay. Now this one is one that has a lot of stuff going on. So this one says y equals -2, parentheses, x plus 3 squared minus 3. So we got a lot of stuff to break up. So first of all, if it is -2, just because it's negative, it means it opens down. Okay, if it's plus 3, then that means it goes to the left 3. If it's minus 3 on the end, that means it goes down 3. So we have lots of stuff that's going on here that we're trying to go through and get. So now remember, we have to think about which one opens down. So you can see B doesn't open down, it opens up. So we know it can't be that one. We have to look for, again, a comparison to the parent function. So the parent function usually is like that, right? If it opens down, remember that the parent function is going to be this. So y equals -x squared. That's the only difference. Now, I want to make sure that from this point that it goes down 3 and it goes to the left 3. So you can kind of imagine where that's going to be. So on this one, if I go down 3 and over 3, it hits exactly on that vertex point. So I can see it's going to be C. Okay, let's just look at the equations now. So this one says, what steps transform the graph of y equals x squared to y equals -x plus 2 squared plus 5? So we have to think about basically how it changes from here to here. So first of all, if there's a negative out in front, we're going to say that opens down. Now, sometimes in math language, they'll say that that means it reflects over the x-axis. Now, really what they're saying is if it reflects, that just means that instead of being up here, it's going to be its reflection down here. That's all it's saying. So don't get real worried about that, but just so you know that language. Okay, if it's plus 2, that means it goes to the left 2. And this plus 5 means that it goes up 5. So if I look at this, first of all, the big one that's different for us, I think, is this part. So I know it can't be the first one because it doesn't have that reflex over the x-axis or D. So now I'm just looking through B and C and comparing them. So 2 to the left matches this, and up 5 goes with this. So that's got to be B. Okay, now what are the vertex and the axis of symmetry for the equation? So first of all, when you're doing vertex and axis of symmetry, this is always the part you do first. So if I look at this equation, there's A, B, and C. So A is 2, B is 28, and C is -10. So to do the axis of symmetry, I have to do x equals -b over 2a. So honestly, if we talk about -b, that's the opposite of b. So if b is 28, the opposite of that is -28. And the a value is 2. And then I'm going to plug this whole thing into Desmos. And if I do, I get -7. So x equals -7 is the axis of symmetry. Now, just based on that, we know it can't be this one, and we know it can't be that one. So we're down to this knowing that it's got to be A or D. So now we need to go through and find the vertex. So the vertex starts with that number as the x. So I'm going to take the equation that we started with, and I'm going to put -7 in for all the x's. And then this part right here gets plugged into your calculator. So when you plug that into Desmos, you end up with -108. And that's going to give you the other part of the vertex. So that means on this one, that's going to match D. Okay, next one, we're going to do the same kind of thing, vertex and axis of symmetry. So if I have this equation, y equals -2x squared plus 24 minus 12. I'm going to use those values. So A is -2, B is 24, and C is -12. So for axis of symmetry, x equals -b over 2a. So -b is going to be the opposite of b. So b is +24, so that's going to be -24. And a is -2. So if I put this whole thing in my calculator, I end up with 6. So x equals 6 is my axis of symmetry. So based on that, it can't be this one, can't be this one, or this one. So I'm pretty sure that it's going to be C. But I need to go through and find my vertex. So remember, the vertex starts with this axis of symmetry number. So it's going to start with 6. I'm going to use the equation that we have. I'm going to plug in 6 in all those spots. And then that part goes just the way it's written into your calculator. And I get y equals 60. So then this number has to go back in here. So you know that it's going to match this 660 here. So we have verified that the answer is C. Now with some of these, I don't want you to think that on all of these you can't use a calculator or you can't be able to do that. Now, if I start to look at this, honestly, I would take this equation right here and I would put it in Desmos and see which one it matches. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So just like we were doing in class, so when I get here, this is my Desmos app, but you can open Desmos on your computer at www.desmos.com and that's fine. So now if I'm going through to do this, I'm going to type in the equation I have. So y equals x squared minus 2x plus 1. So a couple things. You might notice that there's a couple gray dots here. If I touch them, they'll turn black, but they'll also tell you what the point is. So you're looking for one that hits the y-axis at 1 and the x-axis as 1. So if I go back and look, that would match this one. But listen, your work right there is telling me you're using Desmos. So there are kind of a handful of them that are going to be like that, and I want you to be able to see that. Okay, now for 9. This is going to be one too. I'm just going to put in Desmos. So I'm going to take this equation and put it in Desmos, and then I'm going to see which one it matches here. So I'm going to pull up my app again. You just hit the X at the end of the line to get rid of it. So I have y equals negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. Just double checking my equation. Make sure I didn't get anything crazy here. So now I see that it hits the y-axis at 3, and then I can see a vertex at 1, 4. So if I go back over here, I can see that this one will hit at 3, and then it will hit at 1, 4. Now, I will tell you, I can see B repeats. Okay, so I'm not worried about that. I'll take that off in the test. But C is going to be the one that we worry about. Okay, now if you wrote, if they were the same, you wrote B or C, I can live with that too. If you happen to see one that happens to double there, they don't all do that, but sometimes it does. Okay, now, this one says, what is the equation in standard form of a parabola that contains the following points? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take these 3 points and we're going to put the points into Desmos. And we're going to put the equations in one at a time. To see which one sits on all 3 points. Okay, so putting those points in, Desmos is pretty easy. You write them exactly the way they are in here. So I'll write this one in one line, this one in line 2, and this one is line 3. So I'll show you how this works. So I'm going to go back here and get rid of that first line, and literally I'm going to enter them just like the points are. So parentheses -2, the comma is right in that column where the y is. 26. Now, do you notice how there's like a label button there? I'm going to hit label. Now, do you notice I can't see it? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now, I can either use my fingers and zoom in, or I can use the plus and minus that are up in the top right-hand corner to do that. Now, at the end of this, I'm just going to hit the blue arrow key on the bottom, or if I were using my Chromebook, I just hit the enter return button. And now I'm going to put the next one in. Oops, I guess I got a little excited there. So I have 0, 4, so 0, 4. I click the label box so you can see where that one is. And hit enter. 4, 56. And I'm going to hit the label button. Now you can see you still can't see that. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So I've got those 3 points. I've got to be able to see them to be able to make this work. Now I want to see which of the 4 equations that I have are going to sit on top of those. Now, they have to sit on top of all 3 points. So just like I hit enter before, I'm going to do the same thing. And now I'm going to put an equation in. So I'm going to do the first one. So y equals 4x squared minus 3x plus 4. Now, if you look, you can see this one goes through all 3 points. So I know that's going to be the equation that matches it. If the first one did match, I just exit out and put the next equation in there and keep trying them until I get one. So that would match this one. Now, I'm going to tell you what. This is your work. You're telling me what you're going to do. Now, if you choose to not do that, then I better see some mathematical formulation there, some calculations. Otherwise, I have no idea how you did it, so you've got to tell me. Okay, now here's the good news. 11 and 12, we're going to be able to solve them just like number 10. So 11 and 12, we solve them exactly the same way. The only thing that's different on this one is the way they write the points. So if you notice this first one, how x is -2 and f of x is -8, that means that your first point is -2, -8. So 0, -6 would be the next one. And 4 and 46 would be the other. Now, the whole reason that works is because that right there is another word for y. So you got to be able to put your points together. So now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to put these 3 points in there, and then we're going to type these one at a time until we figure out which one sits on top of those points. So I'm just going to exit out of each one of these, and I'm going to start by putting the points in. So I have -2, -8. I'm going to hit that little home button so I can at least start to see where my points are. So that recenters it so you can kind of see stuff. Hit enter. So my next point is 0, -6. Now there's that point there. Then I have 4 and 46. Now I can't see that, but that's going to kind of go farther up. So it is there. So we have 3 points now that we're going to try. So I'm going to hit enter, and then one at a time we're going to type the equations in there. So y equals 5x squared plus 2x minus 6. So I can see that one of the points sits on there, but the other 2 are not on there. So I'm going to exit that out. I know it can't be A. I'm going to put the next one in there. So y equals 6x squared plus 5x minus 2. So now you can see none of them sit on that one. So I'm just going to backspace here, so I can go to my next one. So y equals -2x squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay, you can still see it's not hitting all the points. So let's hope to God it's the last one. So y equals x squared plus 5x minus 6. And you can see it sits on top of every one of those. So that means it matches D here. So it's the same principle every time. Put the 3 points in, do your equation one at a time to make sure which one it matches. So on number 12, we're going to do the same thing. This f of x is just like y. So there's my first point. So -2, 5, 0, 5, and 4, and -43. So those are my 3 points. So I'm going to go to Desmos and put those 3 in, and then we'll do our equations one at a time. So I'm just exiting out in the X at the end and start to put my points in. So negative 2, comma 5. Then I have 0, 5. And then I have 4, negative 43. Now I can't see that, so I'm going to zoom a little bit. Once I start doing that, I can see that it's way down in the bottom there. Okay, now I can go through all these. I'm going to go to D just so you can see this. So y equals negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 5. And you can see all 3 points on top of that. So you're just going through, putting the points in and trying to find the equation that matches. So I could have gone through all of these, but I kind of just want you to see exactly what happens each time. Now listen, tell me I solve them just like 10. Make the list of points. That's all you need to do. Tell me this f of x is y. And then you'll be good to go. Okay, and number 13. What are the coordinates of the vertex of the graph or table, and is it a maximum or a minimum? So if I look at this graph, I can tell that would be the vertex. The vertex is either the top of a hill or it's the very bottom of a hill, one or the other. So first of all, when it's flipped upside down like that, that means that the vertex is a maximum. Now the ordered pair for that would be 1, 2. So all I'm looking for on there is that you've labeled it as a max and the point and that it's the vertex. So you could see that it matches B. Okay, now on the next one, we're going to do a little bit of graphing. So they want us to still identify the vertex and whether it's a maximum or a minimum. So I've got these points here that I'm going to have to go through and graph. So I have 0, 1, which would be right there. Negative 1, negative 2. Negative 2, negative 3. Negative 3, negative 2. And negative 4, positive 1. So you can see the graph there. This would be my vertex. And because of the way that it's done, it's the bottom of a hill, so it's a minimum. Now that ordered pair would be negative 2, negative 3. So that matches A. So lots of ways you can find that. Okay, for 15 and 16, these two right here, we're going to order the group of quadratics from widest to narrowest, and we're going to use this by putting them in Desmos and seeing which one of these will be the widest and which one of these will be the most narrow, so the closest to the y-axis. So I'm going to take these three and put them in Desmos. So I'm just going to exit out of what I have here. And I have y equals 3x squared. Now you could tell on this one, I'm going to hit the little house to get it right back in the center here. You could tell that one is blue. They're going to be color-coded, which will be really nice for you. The next one is y equals 4x squared. That one's green. So see how the blue is inside of the green one is inside the blue one? So the green one so far is the most narrow. Then I have y equals x squared. So you can see that one's the furthest out. So y equals x squared is going to be the furthest one out. That's this graph. Then y equals 3x is going to be that one. And then if I go to this one, the green one is going to be y equals 4x squared. That's the most narrow. So it's going to be, oops, might help if I wrote with a marker. Y equals x squared is the most wide. Then y equals 3x squared. And y equals 4x. Now with that y equals x squared, remember how we assume it's 1? This is how you tell the widest to the most narrow. The widest has the smallest number. So 1, 3, 4. See how those are in order? So 1 is the most wide, then 3, and then 4. So then I just look for the answer that has those in order. So that would match B. Now we're going to do the same exact thing with those three equations. So again, it's going to go in Desmos. So Desmos is going to be the same thing for 15 and for 16. So I'm going to exit out of these. So I'm going to go through and put them in. So y equals negative 2x squared. Y equals negative 3x squared. And y equals negative x squared. So you can see the one that's the widest is this one that's 4, or excuse me, that's blue. That's y equals negative x squared. Then the black one that's here is going to be y equals negative 2x squared. And then the red one is going to be y equals negative 3x squared. So when you're looking at the numbers, if it's upside down like that one was, it's going to be negative x squared, then negative 2x squared, and then y equals negative 3x squared. Now on this one, what I would say is look at the number that would be in front and think of the positive version of it. So if I have negative 1, the positive version of that would be 1. That's the smallest. Negative 2, the opposite of that would be positive 2. That would be the next. And then negative 3 reminds you of 3. So that's going to be the biggest. Okay, and that one is going to match A. Okay, now we have 3 more left to look at. So on 17, it says, how is the graph of y equals 4x squared plus 2 different from the graph of y equals negative 4x squared? So the only thing that's really different here is this part. So remember, if it's plus on the end, that means it's going to go up 2. So it shifts up 2. So it's D. Now, if you wanted to, you could put both of these equations in Desmos and see what they look like and how they change. Now, 18 says, how is the graph of y equals negative x squared minus 1 different from the graph of y equals negative x squared? So the only thing that's different is that part on the end. So if it's minus, that means it's going to go down. If it's minus 1, it's going to go down 1. So if it goes down 1, oops, that's going to be C. Okay, so we have, I think, one more to look at, 19. Okay, graph the function, identify the vertex and the axis of symmetry. So I think for this, let's go through and find the vertex and axis of symmetry. Remember, out of those two, this is the one you're starting with first. So my equation is f of x equals x squared plus 4x minus 2. So first thing I would do there is add a 1. So first of all, if that's a positive 1, for sure it opens up. Okay? Then I'm going to go through and start to identify my pieces. So A is 1, B is 4, and C is negative 2. So for the axis of symmetry, I'm going to do x equals negative b over 2a. So negative b is the opposite of b. So if b is positive 4, that's going to be negative 4. Now if I put this in my calculator, it's going to give me negative 2. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2. Okay, now if I'm looking down here, look at the axis of symmetry. This is positive 2, and this is positive 2. So already I'm down to the fact it can only be B or C. Now remember, we said that it opens up. And if we look at this one, that opens down. So that one's out. So we're thinking that it's going to be D. Now we've got to find the vertex to see if that's true. So to find the vertex, I'm going to take this axis of symmetry, and that's my X value. But take my equation, and I'm going to plug in this -2 for all of the X's. And then I'm going to take this whole part and plug it in my calculator. So if I do, I get y equals -6. Now this is going to go in here. So my vertex is -2, -6. Now the good news is, thank the Lord, that matches all of this. So I can tell that it's D. Okay, so here's the deal. If you are a cohort A or B kid, we're going to do another one in class. If you're cohort C, I'm going to send you another review that you can work on at home. You're going to have a Google form that's going to be practice of this. I've posted a playlist of videos of all of the subjects we've covered this try that you can also go over. So make sure you start studying now.